Okay, let's pivot to the Browns. We're going to get to the matchup in just a little bit, but we wanted to start with sort of putting Andrew Berry under the microscope because that's kind of come up this week and last week about how this team is constructed. Where are the linebackers? Where are the defensive tackles? Have they spent their draft capital properly? And it really got us to thinking, like, what is his grade 3 years in? And I know it's very difficult to grade draft classes 6 games in. You'd be making a huge mistake if you said definitively that a guy's a bust or a star, because we've seen that just never pans out. But when I've got all of his draft picks since he's been leading the draft for the Browns. And I can blast through the names. In 20, Jed Wills, Grant Delpit, Jordan Elliott, Jacob Phillips, Harrison Bryant, Nick Harris, and DPJ. Now, this is 3 years out, so we're, I think, in a better position to grade these guys.
Now's the time to grade these guys.
This is the time and oddly enough, that's when they're going to get their second contracts. So when you look at these guys, where's the star? And by the way, I would say Jed Wills at the top was a miss.
I don't know if he's a miss.
I don't look at him as a miss. I look at him as, I mean, he wasn't, you know.
He's consistently grading out as the lowest graded offensive lineman. And none of those
the Browns?
I believe so.
Yeah,
the
but
weeks that I looked,
they're all getting good grades, so I don't know
They
if
are.
being the lower. Where does he rank in the NFL?
I'll tell you guys momentarily.
I don't see him.
I see him as an
If you
average
have to ask,
player.
though, here's my thing on that. If you have to ask, is this guy a star? He's not.
Well, he's not. But nobody's saying he's a star.
He's not Joe.
I don't think
He's not Joe Thomas. Like
Not
we can all
he's not,
agree
but
on
I don't
that.
think he's a bust either.
And
I
that's
think
not
he's
fair
an
to compare him to Joe Thomas.
I think he's an average player.
He's serviceable.
Yeah, like I'm not
Your
watching.
first round pick can't be serviceable.
But I'm not watching.
Jedrick Willis, Jason, real quick.
Yeah.
According to PFF this year, is the 43rd ranked tackle out of 76.
Okay, guys, that's
average. That's middle of the pack.
But
he can't be middle of the pack as a first round pick.
James Hudson, for the comparison, is 34th.
But I'm not. Here's the thing. I'm not watching edge rushers come off the end and blowing up Jacoby Brissett because Wills missed his assignment.
Right.
And so, listen, I don't know how PFF grades guys, and I don't, especially when it comes to linemen and all that.
I don't either.
I trust their eye. Fine, whatever. You say he's 43rd, whatever. Is he getting my quarterback killed?
No.
No.
He's doing an adequate job. No, he's not a star. And so if you want to say that draft pick is disappointing,
who were the
if
other?
You had taken him in the third round, you'd be like,
Delpit.
No. The other tackles that went high.
Okay, well, here's the issue, Jason, real quick. Here's the issue with that.
Tristan Wirfs.
Yeah, Wirfs was the guy that
Andrew Thomas
is the star from that.
Well, Andrew Thomas, the #1 graded offensive
right,
player
but the
in
last
NFL,
2 years he was
Giants
terrible,
tackle.
and now this year he's been good for 5 games.
So he's first overall in PFF as for offensive tackle ratings go. Tristan Wirfs is 3rd.
Okay.
Right.
And then there was another tackle in that class.
So
I'm
clearly
looking at
there
right
was
now.
a move that could have been made that was
in
better.
class,
Were those guys taken after him or before him? I don't remember.
was taken after.
Thomas was before.
Okay.
Wirfs was after. And Mekhi
Yeah.
Becton, who hasn't played this year.
Becton hasn't been
Yeah.
good.
No, he hasn't.
So of the 3 tackles they could have gotten, at the moment he looks like the second of the 3. So
To me, I'm
fine with the pick.
I've always thought he was a guard. He's better suited at guard. He played on the right side at Alabama. He bends a lot at the waist. He's not a knee bender in pass protection, but he's pretty strong. So he doesn't get blown by or anything. He's just he's a tackle.
I wanted to be excited about the first round draft pick of any draft. I want him to be a major contributor. I don't want to worry about that person.
But he is a major contributor. He's a starter on a left tackle.
He's a starter, but if he's ranked 40.
Yeah, but that's just
whatever.
based on 6 games. What was he ranked last year?
Well, I'm going to give him.
Was he ranked
I'm going to
the year
give him the
before?
benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
I think when I thought he was better before the ankle injury.
I thought as a rookie
and
he
I'm
was
wondering,
pretty good.
is that thing even? I mean, you know how much your lower extremities come into play for linemen.
That stuff don't heal.
I think he's an
heal
adequate pick.
until you're
I
done.
think the other picks in that draft. I mean, I think to say Harrison Bryant's a miss. He was a 4th round pick. He's been a decent player.
Grant Delpit, second
No,
rounder.
that looks like a loss. That
Jordan
looks like
Elliott?
No, the other 3 picks on that list. Bring that graphic back up, guys.
Can you
Those
throw
other
that
3
up?
guys
The
all are
2020
L's.
draft.
But not Harrison.
Well, Delpit's having a horrible year. He's having an
and
awful
he wasn't good
year.
last year. That's looking like a bad pick.
It's looking like a bad pick.
Elliott and Phillips
not
look
ready
like
to,
bad
I'm not
picks.
ready to write Delpit off. There's so much athleticism in there that he's
Oh
made
yeah,
so
you
many
got to
plays.
give more time. But at the moment, he looks like a bad pick.
Yep.
The third
So
round picks are bad picks.
what
I
if
think
we-
the Harrison Bryant pick is not a miss. I think that's a decent pick.
What if you gave an
Fourth round.
overall grade to this draft?
Well, what's the rest of the draft? You got the rest
Okay,
of the draft?
so Jed Wills led the draft. So after the names you see there, Nick Harris, who is going to be fine when he's healthy. But
I think that's an incomplete.
I think it's incomplete now. We don't know. And DPJ,
That's a win.
because he was taken where he was,
C.
6th or 7th round.
That's a great pick.
That's not
That's
a
an A.
G. That's a
C.
C. That's a C plus draft.
I agree with you.
I disagree. I think it's a B minus.
See, you,
Or B minus.
Okay,
B
so
minus.
okay, 2%.
Sounds
That's
better.
where we're
Sounds
arguing about.
better.
B minus means good. You see B, that's
hey,
good.
if Bull wants to be an easy grader and he wants to go soft on these guys, that's
Wait a
fine.
second.
No, that's fine.
Wait a
This
second.
is the kinder, gentler Bull.
Yes,
I
it
don't know
is.
what happened to him.
He's re-imaged.
He got
Listen.
kidnapped. Where's the real Bull?
He went to Seattle.
Here's what I think. Now, a lot of this depends on how good Jedrick Wills ends up being over the,
Look,
and
we're
also
doing
Nick
this
Harris.
3 years in, so we don't know.
I think
You're
Nick
right.
Harris is going to be really good. And
I think he could be.
And I think
yeah.
Donovan Peoples-Jones for a 6th round pick that's a win.
Listen,
right
if Nick
there.
Harris winds up starting for 10 years for the Browns at center, this
It's
is
a win.
He might not get
And
it. He might not
I
get
was
his
gonna say,
position back
Poach
at
has
this
been phenomenal.
point.
Let's
No, I
split
know
the
it's
difference,
good.
and we'll call
Right.
it a B minus minus.
I mean, if you want to.
It's not like Hulu plus.
Yeah, right.
That
Exactly.
is that is
Exactly.
a,
I mean, there were 3 of us here that had C. I had solid C, not C plus.
All right, let's
C.
go C
Two-
plus.
because
Split
when
the
I'm looking at those,
2.67.
when I'm looking at the, here's one way to do it.
Yeah.
A GM told me this. Are other guys wanting to poach players from my draft class?
Right.
Who does another team want to poach from this draft?
DPJ.
Maybe.
DPJ.
There's plenty of teams with bad offensive lines that would like to have Jedrick Wills.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
Again, not great, and
Right.
not. Oh, when you look back, yeah, was he worth the 10th pick in the draft? No.
C.
I
But
still think
they
we got to
were-
go C.
Let's go C plus. Let's
C plus is fair.
C plus. We have
So we got a
officially
C
gave
plus
the 2020 class.
And that's
a
the
C
class
plus.
that we know the most about.
Yes.
They're the furthest in. 2021, Greg Newsome. JOK.
Well, Greg, in fairness,
No.
Greg Newsome was excellent last year as a rookie.
But I don't know what
He's
happened
off
to
to
that
a
guy.
bad start this year.
I don't know what happened to that guy.
JOK's been a disaster.
JOK. Anthony Schwartz.
disaster.
That's
James Hudson.
Hudson's played
Big
well
hit.
when had an
Big
opportunity.
hit.
Yeah.
In fact, the star of this draft.
Yeah.
Tommy Togiai.
Awful.
Tony Fields.
Awful.
Who?
Richard LeCount.
Just
Awful.
got
Just got cut.
cut from the
Demetric
practice
Felton.
field.
Don't know where
Forgot
you're
the
at.
big name.
About to be cut from the
Yeah.
practice team.
So,
Anthony Schwartz.
no, I said
No, he
Schwartz.
said it.
Oh, you
I
said
said
Schwartz,
Schwartz
sorry.
after
Yeah, yeah.
JOK.
You just dropped it.
So, I mean,
Get it?
So I love
That was
one
good,
of those
Jason.
picks.
That was good. I dropped the ball on that one. Sorry,
I
Jay.
love one of those, and I don't love Greg Newsome right now because if he was awful last year but great this year, I'd say good, we're trending in the
Right.
right direction.
but it's only 6 games.
Understandable.
You know, if we had this conversation about this draft at the beginning of the year, it would have been a higher grade because we felt good about Newsome and JOK
I
coming
felt
into the
great
season.
about those two coming
Right,
in.
and now
but
you're
they've
like-
been so bad
Yes.
this year.
I've
I've forgotten how good they were last year.
I still think if you put a better linebacker next to JOK, you're going to get a better version of JOK.
I know, but we don't
absolutely
have that
believe
right
I know.
I think if you gave him a better coach, you would know what to do. Maybe you'd read his keys.
Who of these guys are other GMs thinking about calling Andrew Berry for?
Oh,
and
I
seeing-
definitely think
No.
a smart team could use JOK
Now,
creatively.
hold on. They take
with
both,
a good defensive
no,
with a
coordinator.
different position and a good
They would
coordinator.
take
Yes.
both of them. They would, but
And Newsome
and
and Hudson.
Newsome.
There's
For
three guys.
For me, Newsome is tricky because when I look at you and they say, okay, we're gonna move you to the slot, I'm thinking, but you're a first round pick though. I don't know how much you draft a slot corner. I know people move their guys in the slot, but when Emerson came in, he's out playing on the boundary.
Yep.
I said, well, I don't know, man. I don't know how you can spend a first round draft pick on a slot corner, but slot corners not gonna play that much. I mean, they will, but they're not gonna be getting the top flight guys. They're not gonna be getting.
It's like the starting pitcher that becomes a reliever.
Yeah, it's like, okay, if you're a dominant reliever, okay. But if you just, all depends on how many opportunities you get to come out the bullpen. So for me, Newsome, he's not bad or anything. But I will say, he hasn't shown that level of prowess that he did that first year because he was all over the place. He would be
what are our
hitting-
grades?
I'll say a C minus. Guys?
I would say C.
Okay.
I'd give him a solid C.
JOK has shown me something. I feel like he can get back to that. I go with a C.
I'm going solid C too.
In terms of guys,
now I'm the one giving the hardest grade.
I know you are. What the hell happened, Paul?
I don't know. Just because, right now, because this unknown with the first 2 picks, they haven't played well. I think there's potential, but they haven't played well to this point this year.
I think GMs would call about Greg Newsome, JOK, Hudson.
Yes.
And clearly no one's called about Demetric Felton, or else he wouldn't still be here.
Yeah.
And Richard LeCount, who's gone.
LeCount's gone.
And the Schwartz pick was particular.
Tony Fields,
that
Tom
pick was so bad.
Togiai has been, what is he rating?
He's
Like
useless.
17, 18
Yeah,
is
he's
his
useless.
PFF grade?
Yeah.
The guys in the 5th, 6th round, if they don't hit, okay. But a 3rd and 4th pick are not a waste.
You know what? You're right for the most part, but
Yeah.
every once in a while, you need a major contributor that comes from the 5, 6, 7.
And it looks like they're going to get that with Donovan Peoples-Jones. They are getting that.
They are
so that's
from that
why,
draft.
So,
but from this draft, they don't have anybody.
All right, so we've given him a C+ and a C.
Yes.
I think this year's draft is incomplete.
No, but let's look at it for fun.
Okay.
Because I know it's incomplete, and it's really unfair. And
I'm sitting here looking. Jacob Phillips is a 3rd rounder, and Togiai is a 4th rounder. We say that
hurts.
But we say they haven't addressed the defensive tackles. They have. They just missed.
Yep.
They missed on both those picks.
you're absolutely right.
And they drafted Perion Winfrey this year in the
So
4th round.
let's talk about this year's draft.
Yeah.
Martin Emerson.
Remember, they didn't have a 1st or 2nd round pick because of the trade.
Martin Emerson in the 3rd round for me is an A+ pick.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The
So
3rd
far,
round?
early.
Yeah.
But he's long. He's physical.
He started.
He's not afraid to take the other team's best receiver.
He can tackle.
He can tackle, which has been beneficial because this is tackle football.
He's been their best DB.
And remember, they passed on a lot of guys in that 2nd round.
I know they did.
To trade down and get Emerson and their kicker.
And that makes
That's true.
Right. So Alex Wright.
It's been terrible so far.
So far, I know it's early.
David Bell hasn't
Bell, is he still with us?
He hasn't played, but
He's had a couple of catches.
What's concerning about Bell, I still think it's way too early on him. I still think he can make an impact on the second half of the season. He's a 3rd round pick.
No, it's early. It's early on all these guys.
There was 15 receivers taken in front of him.
Right.
But if they miss on Schwartz and Bell, that's 2 third-round picks taken at receiver that they whiffed on. Then you start questioning, what are they looking for in receivers?
Right.
They tried the speed guy, didn't work. If they try the hands guy and that doesn't work, what are they doing?
although they did hit on Donovan Peoples-Jones.
They did.
As a
But
6th.
defensive tackle, they've taken a defensive tackle in the 3rd or 4th round 3 years in a row.
Perion Winfrey.
Whiffed
And
on
they've
all
all
of
looked
those.
bad.
Like so far Perion
bad.
Winfrey's highlight was draft day. When he FaceTimed and said everything.
All
and we
gas,
love that
no
guy.
breaks, and
since then,
getting kicked out of practice. And
Cade
being
York
suspended for a
he's had some issues. He was inactive for a game.
Cade York,
I think, is a huge hit. I think that they addressed a need, and they did it with a guy that's going to be here for a long time.
Yep.
Jerome Ford, loved him in the preseason.
He's not playing.
Can't get on the field.
But I don't know that that's because he's not. How are they supposed to play him?
Right.
We're complaining about not enough touches for Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb.
No,
You know.
exactly. What I would question is if you already knew you were super strong at that position, and they did, because they've got Dearness Johnson, who also can't get on the field.
Right.
Why not take another shot at an area of real need?
Well,
running back is not an area of need.
No, but they're going to let Kareem Hunt go at the end.
Okay,
of the
then
year,
draft the guy next year.
No, but that's incredible value in the 5th round. If you've got a guy
he ends up
sitting
being
there,
good.
right? Like they're looking at that as a value pick of, I can't believe this guy's still here in the 5th round. Sort of like DPJ in the 6th round, really.
Right.
Let's just take Ford now. We don't need him now.
Best available athlete.
Yeah, but
scenario.
we know we're moving on from Kareem Hunt.
All
we
right.
can plug Jerome Ford in.
Now,
I have no problem.
I loved him in the preseason. I would love to see what he could do in a regular season game, getting 20 carries.
And I think we'll see him, if somebody gets hurt, and certainly by next year. And frankly, if the Browns lose their next 2 games, they should trade Kareem Hunt. If they're not going to sign him, if they lose their next 2 games, they should trade Kareem Hunt and then give more playing time
and
to
get some
Ford.
draft capital back.
Yeah, and get some draft capital.
Michael Woods, what do we think about Michael Woods?
Has he played?
I don't
No,
know.
I haven't
don't
seen
know what
him.
to think of him.
Haven't seen him.
They loved him in camp.
I know. We heard all kinds of good things about him.
He was doing his thing, and then he got a hamstring, and we haven't seen him.
Late round rookies rarely make an impact in the first 6 weeks.
Some get cut.
Yeah, right. So it's really hard to grade the current draft.
I know. It's like asking to grade a baseball player after 3 innings.
Right.
You don't know.
But
Isaiah
of the
Thomas.
Of the guys who have played a lot,
We've seen him.
Of the guys who have played a lot, York's been good, Emerson's been great, and the other guys mostly haven't played besides Winfrey and Wright.
Dawson Deaton is the other name.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys feel comfortable grading this year's draft class at, with the caveat that this is wildly incomplete? But if you had to What would you throw at this
B
one?
minus.
I was going to say B minus too.
I'm B minus as well.
I was going to say B.
Because of
solid
Cade
B.
York
Right.
and Martin Emerson.
York and Emerson make
York
it a
and
B.
Emerson,
Yeah.
to me.
Like, if you get 2 hits out of a draft where you don't have a first and second round pick, I think that's
that's a win.
doing pretty
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
But by the end of the year, I could see myself saying B plus if York and Emerson keep playing like the way they are. Because all I want to do, if you get 2 starters and they 3rd and 4th round picks, you take that. You like, whoa, I got 2 starters out of this draft. One we needed with a kicker. The other one is a cornerback position, which is very pivotal in the league. You definitely take that. I'll take B plus.
I mean, so overall, you'd say that Andrew Berry's been a C,
B minus, C plus drafter.
Yeah.
Right?
I want to add one thing.
Which
on
is
a
better
question.
than most of the GMs the Browns have had, sadly.
That
but
is true.
Not
I
good
want
enough.
to add one thing, then pose a question to you guys. I do think it does matter the value of where you're picking. You get 2 stars in the 3rd round. Obviously, those get boosted. You have a guy like Wills who is competent but not a star at 10. I think it hits you a little more negatively. We do have a question, though, from Damian Frederick. He wants to know, where's the line between bad picks and bad coaching and development? Serious question. I'm not sure where to draw the line to differentiate the two.
Well,
and you look at some of the
big
guys
time.
in last year's
Great
class.
question.
You have Newsome and Njoku, who we thought would take big steps forward this year, and we have not seen that. So where does the blame on their lack of development fall?
It's hard to know.
a good
NFL
question.
teams don't know. That's why they give up on guys too soon.
Right.
Yeah,
well,
that's
look
right.
at Austin Corbett.
That's why Austin Corbett blossoms, and then Wyatt Teller comes here and blossoms.
Yeah. Mhm.
So
Right.
if
Well,
you're
I wonder though if Corbett was here under Callahan, how many years was there crossover? Was there any crossover there? I don't think
I
there
think
was.
he was traded right before Callahan.
And so I wonder, like, what could a guy like Bill Callahan do
Yeah.
with Austin Corbett, who clearly had the ability to
Right.
be a star in
They
this
never
league?
really gave him much of a chance.
Well, he didn't look good when he
didn't
was
look
here,
good,
and
no,
I
I
wonder,
agree.
is that the coaching? Can we look at the offensive line and the development of the offensive line since Bill Callahan got here? When I see that, then here's my question: if he can do it in that group, why can't other coaches do it in their groups?
But it's also up to the players, and sometimes players just develop. You know this. Players develop at different speeds.
Yeah, but look at what he's done at center here. Like, we're done. This team is
This guy
cooked.
Pochich was awful in
We didn't
Seattle.
know who he was or what he could bring.
Callahan is probably the best line coach
Right,
in
not
the
everybody
NFL.
can coach.
I think he's the best position coach in the NFL.
I'm not
Certainly
going to argue
one of the
that.
best, and certainly the best on this
think
team.
about it. They got a guy, Hudson, that's sitting on the bench that's rated higher than their left tackle.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Hudson doesn't start. And
Yeah.
then, so I look at it like
Well,
this.
go ahead. Yeah.
It's a difference between coaching and development, right? But when you look at really good teams, they seem to have the knack to develop them. Like, think about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers are a receiver. They're not going to pay a receiver. You get Mike Wallace, then they leave off from Mike Wallace, then they go get Antonio Brown. So we're not going to pay Antonio Brown. They find Deontay Johnson. Or they find these guys that they can
And by the way,
plug
the
in.
Chiefs do
Mike
the same
Wallace
thing.
did nothing anywhere else.
Yep.
And Juju
Juju's just a
Smith-Schuster
guy.
is just a guy.
That's the guy. So
You know.
you look at it, a lot of it has to do with the system. I look at even our secondary. The Ravens and the Steelers in this division have had ball-hawking, playmaking safeties, right? That's why they went out and got
Bengals do too now with Von Bell.
Minka Fitzpatrick, they
Yeah.
went out and traded for him. And the Browns don't seem to have that same level
How many
of
interceptions
scheme.
do the Browns have this year?
Oh, 1, 2.
They are. We'll pull up in a second.
I think they're last in the league.
24.
Nah, man.
They
Denzel
have
Ward
5
got one.
takeaways on the
Delpit.
season. That's tied for 3rd to
Yeah.
last in the NFL. They do not force
Yeah.
turnovers.
By the way, we do have another position coach that deserves recognition, and that's Stump Mitchell, the running backs.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
It's easy to say Nick Chubb's a great talent. Well, there's a lot of great talents out of college that don't pan out in the NFL at that position. We've seen it time and time again.
Yeah.
Stump, he played with Sony Michel in college, and
Well,
Sony Michel's just a guy in the
Michelle
NFL.
was drafted higher than Chubb.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
And
And he's
look
just
at
a guy.
Yeah, it's stunning.
And Stump Mitchell, wherever he's been as a running back coach, the running backs have had great years. David Johnson had his best year with him in Arizona, on and on. But even last year, like Dearness Johnson was an undrafted guy. They put him in last year. He looked like a superstar.
And,
Coaching counts.
and I
Yeah.
will say, I've never had one conversation with Chad O'Shea, but I've heard a lot of good things about him as
Yeah.
a receivers coach. And it's my neighbor. I forgot his name. The quarterbacks coach.
I can't think of his name.
Drew.
Jeff Yakiwak.
No.
Petzing?
Different guy. Thank you. Drew Petzing.
Yak's his neighbor.
oh,
Petzing.
Whack?
Yeah. I don't know how to
know
say his
that.
last name. I still don't know how to say Yak's last name.
it's Yak. I've worked with him for 3 years. I don't even call him Jeff. It's Yak.
Petzing, I think, will probably be an offensive coordinator somewhere else next year.
Oh, really?
So they do have some pretty good minds on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
It's the defense.
It's the defense that I don't.
Yeah,
I can't even name any of their position coaches on defense. I can't think of any.
No. 2 interceptions on the year.
2 picks. Delpit and
Delpit had the
Ward.
pick on the bad throw by Baker,
Yep.
and Ward had the pick against Atlanta.
Because that's the style of defense you play.
But you know what? That's never going to get it done.
Nope.
It's not, because the most important stat in the NFL is plus minus.
But we talk all
And
the time
you gotta
about how
force turnovers.
Turnovers are fluky year to year, and some of it.
They are. Some of them.
Every team coaches.
But I
get
also
the
think,
ball.
Jason, that some teams force their own turnovers.
They do, but
you do when you put pressure on the quarterback, when you bring blitz. The fact that they have 2 interceptions, to me, is one of the biggest indictments of this defense that you can write.
Yeah, you need
Yeah,
a higher
that's
number,
it.
especially when you got Denzel Ward out there.
Yeah.
You know, you'd think he'd have 2 or 3 by himself by this point.
I mean,
By the way, speaking of Denzel Ward, real quick, let's give grades for John Dorsey's 2 drafts. And I'll give you the
Yeah,
drafts
that's fair.
and real quick what we think. 2020, his first draft was 2018. Took Baker Mayfield first overall, Denzel Ward 4th overall, Austin Corbett 33, but then traded him away, Nick Chubb 35. The rest of that draft, the guys are all useless. Chad Thomas, Antonio Callaway, Jannard Avery, Damian Ratley,
Antonio
Simeon
Callaway.
Thomas.
Never should have been drafted.
Wow, Antonio Callaway, what a
busted
name.
with weed in his
What
car
do
coming
we
up to
grade
camp.
that draft?
You have 2 allegedly elite players at their individual positions.
Yeah, just because Chubb and Ward are in there,
But you
and I'm
do
a lot.
miss on.
But
you
if
do
we're
miss on
if we're
Baker at
knocking
1, though.
down Greg Newsome for having a bad start, we got to do the same with Ward for a bad start.
Yeah, but
even though Ward has a longer track record.
I've seen more from Ward.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is
know-
such a difficult draft
It
to
is,
grade
because
you
you
whiff on
got
the
it
number
wrong
1
at
pick.
quarterback.
You whiff on the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
You hit on 4. It's 4. You better hit on 4. But they
Right.
hit on 4. You
Right.
get credit for that. Chubb obviously is a massive home run where you take him in the second round.
Corbett
Huge home run.
could have been a good pick, but he traded him. Dorsey traded him away.
And he was a good player. He's still like
That's such a difficult.
It's hard.
You know what,
to
though?
grade.
When Corbett was here, it was pretty clear this guy is over his skis. And you know, when we had Joe Thomas on a couple of months ago, and Joe, he wasn't talking specifically about Corbett, but in a general sense he was. He was talking about players, particularly at the offensive line, where it's really tough to grade them early on. And with that in mind, we should kind of keep true to that with Jed Wills. But he said some guys just take time in the
Yeah.
oven.
Right.
They just do.
Yeah,
and
we
I
got
think
spoiled
Austin
by Joe.
Corbett,
Yeah.
because he was drafted where he was, and because we were seeing Joe Thomas's play here, we were looking at him saying, you can't miss on he was the first pick of the second round, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now he's ended up, I think he's got 2 Super Bowl rings with 2
Yeah.
different teams.
He's a good player.
And
And
so-
Mitchell Schwartz, his first half a season here, he struggled, and he became a great player.
No, you're right.
Great
You're
player.
right. So that is a tough draft
it's
to
tough.
grade, just because I can't give a draft that includes Ward and Chubb, I can't give it anything but a B. I can't give it a C.
But he
even
missed-
with the miss at Baker, I
Right,
can't.
right.
Because
Yeah.
and people forget this. And this tells you how things change year to year.
Right.
Baker still set the record for the most touchdowns
Yeah.
by a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
Right.
He's still that guy.
Yeah.
But it had-
And so who was grading that draft after 1 year and looking at
It's an
Baker?
A+.
And even after 3 years, when
Right.
Baker
It's
finally
still-
took the team to the playoffs
Right.
and won a game, who at that point was saying bust?
No, but even by the end of the 3rd year, you would have much rather had Josh Allen.
Oh, listen,
Yeah.
that's a no-brainer.
Right.
That
And
is
a lot
a
and
no-brainer.
other teams got that wrong too, but
A lot of other
I
teams.
give it a B minus.
I give it a B. Just
I'll go with
because-
whatever you guys say.
Yeah.
'cause
I
I
mean,
can't
I'm
grade
good
that.
with a B.
I mean, because Chubb is he's the best running back in the league.
Now, can you help me with this? Because we've been talking about this on the show, so we've been getting a lot of run on Twitter with this. People have been saying, "Oh, it's clearly Barry that's had the better drafts," or it's clearly Dorsey. And a lot of people were hitting me up saying, "Well, now let's just take a look at what Dorsey did in Kansas City."
What does that matter?
Was he even the trigger man on
Andy
those
Reid
drafts?
I think Andy Reid was.
I don't know.
On the
Well,
Patrick
no.
Mahomes thing,
When you-
especially.
Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
He drafted a ton of talent in Kansas City that has put them at the top of the NFL
Right.
cycle right now. I don't even know if you know the answer to this, because a lot of teams don't pull back the curtain for us to see that. Was Dorsey the guy that was running those drafts
Here,
in Kansas
Kansas
City?
City.
I have no idea.
Yes.
I think he
I don't
probably
either.
deferred to Andy on
Of
Mahomes
course. Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
the world.
But why
have
would
no
he have
idea.
left Kansas City if he had the power to,
Well, he and Andy had a falling out.
And I think like John had a reputation of mismanaging the cap and going
Yes,
through
he was-
cap
yeah.
money and
Right,
stuff
right.
like that.
Not worrying about the cap.
Right.
Well,
essentially.
and
Right.
so you could argue that of the last 5 years, that's the best draft that year, even though he missed on Baker. He also had the worst draft of the last 5 years. Now, in fairness, he didn't have a first-round pick.
Oh, the 19
But
draft was
2019,
Terrible.
Greedy Williams, Taki, Red Wine, Mac Wilson, Austin Seibert, Drew Forbes, and Donnie Lewis.
By the way, for what it's worth, let's throw this on Andrew Berry too.
Yeah.
He traded Mac Wilson, who's not a star, but if we could do that trade over again, Mac Wilson for Chase Winovich. Chase is on a milk carton too.
But
I know
Matt
he's
wasn't
been
like
hurt.
Mac Wilson
I saw
was
him
any
yesterday.
good.
I saw him in the locker room yesterday.
So he is still
Yeah,
with the
he's a
with the
nothing,
Browns.
but so's Mac Wilson.
No,
I
Mac
mean,
Wilson, he wasn't a star, but he made some plays against the Browns on Sunday. And it's more than
Yeah,
what we've gotten
I
out
don't
of
know.
Chase Winovich.
That draft you just
that
mentioned
draft's
is
an
an
F.
F.
Yeah,
That was horrible.
That's one of the worst I've ever
Is there
heard.
any? I mean, I know Taki.
Two guys left on the team,
but
Greedy
Taki
and
and
Taki.
Greedy
Greedy
are
and
like
Taki.
hanging on by fingernails.
Yeah.
It feels like.
I mean, Taki's a okay backup linebacker.
Special teams guy.
But where he
special
was
teams
drafted,
guy.
he wasn't.
Right, he was a
Remember the
third-round
excitement
pick.
too on Mac Wilson in his first preseason.
Oh,
game?
he had picks.
He had a pick six. He had I think 2 interceptions.
Yep.
A pick six, and we were like, we got one.
I know.
Got
We
one.
got
Greedy
one.
Williams
One of
has
them
been
dudes.
Awful.
Greedy
He was a
Williams.
second-round pick.
What happened to Greedy Williams?
Injuries. Injury.
So-
he
Yeah.
can't stay healthy.
You know, they both had their hits and misses. Obviously, Nick Chubb of the last 5 years was the best draft pick.
Without question.
By anybody. But, and ultimately, like,
But you're okay with Dorsey not being here and Andrew Berry.
I am, but I'm not
We
like,
did the show together the day
Yeah.
he was fired. Do you remember that?
Yes.
It was like New Year's Eve, I think.
Yes,
or it
yes,
was
yes,
real.
yes, yes.
It was
Before he got fired?
the day Dorsey got fired. I
Right.
was filling in for Dustin,
Right.
and I was sitting in with Bull.
Oh, okay.
So he and I did the show together
Yeah.
on.
And
on-
what was
and people
the
were
general?
angry.
Oh, we were both furious.
Yeah, you're right. At the
Yeah,
time,
I was too.
At
Yeah.
the time, because at the time you felt good about Baker, or at least okay
Now
about
you
Baker.
got to lump into his body of work the
Freddie
terrible
Kitchens.
decision he made to make Freddie
Awful.
Kitchens the head
Yeah.
coach.
Awful.
Now I know he had a hunch, and we loved Freddie.
In the beginning, you're like,
and
okay,
and when he
Freddie.
was named coach,
Then we
Don't
figured out
put me
with-
in that boat.
Don't put
so
him.
you never bought into the
Never.
hype.
Never.
Because you
Well,
were
but
the
you
big
knew
exception.
the inside stuff more than the rest of us.
Well, I jumped out of the boat at the combine when I started hearing stories that I can't even share.
yeah,
After he was hired, though.
After he
Yes.
was hired.
But I'm just saying, on the surface, that move was very well received.
Yeah, it
in
wasn't
Cleveland.
crazy.
Oh,
I-
and I didn't hear any critics.
I didn't
of
think
it.
any of us like were. It was kind of like, well, okay, the team played well as
Unconventional.
him as OC. Let's see what he got.
I can share this. I wrote about this. I texted Bill Parcells because Bill found him. Like, he was the first one to hire Freddie.
Yeah.
And Bill talks to anybody. Like, Bill will do interviews with anybody. And I texted Bill about Freddie, if he would talk to me about Freddie. And he said, sorry, Jason, I'm sitting this one out. And I thought, oh, my God.
Yeah, that's a red flag.
What have they just done?
Because he didn't want to say anything bad.
'Cause he didn't want to say
One
anything
thing I
bad.
wanted to bring up in this discussion, because I've always scratched my head on two things with this organization. Why? Now, it's changed recently because of Dorsey, but for the longest time, this organization did everything in its power to not take players from Ohio State.
It's weird.
It's bizarre, particularly when Pittsburgh has. Think of the guys Pittsburgh has taken from Ohio State
Cam
that have gone on to
Hayward,
have
Santonio
15-year
Holmes.
All-Pro careers.
Yeah.
I've never been able to figure that out, ever, and I still can't. And the other thing that is mind-boggling to me, when was the last time this organization hired a head coach with previous experience? I'll wait.
Mangini.
Mangini. Yeah.
Yeah.
Romeo
Now-
was before Mangini, right?
No,
Romeo-
Romeo
did
did
Romeo-
not have
yeah, he
previous
did
head
not.
coaching
No.
experience.
He was in D.C. That's
Mangini.
I
right.
think the answer to that off the top of my head is
Chris.
No, it's Mangini.
Was Palmer?
no. Outside of Mangini.
Oh, outside of
so
Mangini.
Mangini is what
No, I don't
did.
think Chris Palmer had been a head coach before that.
No.
Marty Schottenheimer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
Did Marty even have
I'm
head
trying,
coaching
I'm
experience?
trying to remember
Or
who.
No, they have-
no,
they
Marty,
haven't.
Marty went to San Diego after that.
Yes, and he was with Kansas City after
Yep.
that.
Bud Carson was a no.
And that's the other head scratcher that I've had. We've hired 20 head coaches in this era of really Marty Schottenheimer and
Yeah.
beyond. why are we always going to the well of untapped water? Why? I mean, it's a mistake that this organization has made.
Yeah.
Why have we never in our history gone out and made a play for that guy? The guy that we know makes a
Although
difference.
Mancini wasn't good.
But he wasn't that guy. Like
Did
we
Hugh
never-
Jackson head coach before?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
No,
Hugh Jackson.
interim.
with
Interim
the
and-
Raiders.
No, he's been the
with
head
the
coach of the Raiders.
Okay.
It was
One
one
season,
year and he went 8-8.
And
And Hugh Jackson at the time,
Here-
we all thought was a great choice.
I didn't.
Okay,
But I
most
had a
us
lot of
did.
people telling me things that you're not going to like. You're not going to like what this guy brings.
Yeah.
Well, here's why.
But
people do
he
that.
was the one guy. Sorry, G, real quick. Hugh Jackson was really the only guy the Browns have hired in like the last decade that other teams had interest in.
Yeah.
Right. So at least that wasn't crazy. Like
Because
all
other
these
coaches
hi-
had choices and never chose Cleveland.
Right. All these other coaches. Nobody was looking at Chubb. Nobody was looking at Freddie. Nobody
Right.
appeared to be looking at Stefanski either. But go ahead. G.
People value the future of things, of the unknown.
Right, yeah, sure.
Right. Like if I got a coach that I've already seen his track record, I've seen him lose, I've seen him win. You imagine in your head, well, if I could get my own coach, guess what?
No, I want a known commodity.
It's
I
just
just
like,
do.
It's
Yeah.
just like draft picks.
Yeah.
Would you rather trade a draft pick for somebody who is a proven talent?
Give me a
Yes,
free agent.
Right.
And then people be like, well, the picks. That's why people go crazy when you trade your picks, because they imagine in their head. They don't see the C, the B, the F, the D, the guy that's out of the league in 2 years. All they see is, wow, this could be the next Tom Brady.
Yeah, right.
So people they want their own thing. They can imagine he's going to be the next Tom Landry or Bill Parcells
And we've
or
tried
Belichick.
that. We've
So-
tried that for a very long time, and I'm ready to go out and
Although,
make
how
a
many
play.
repeat coaches have success the second time around?
well, there's been a lot of coaches that have won division titles with more than one team. I mean, Andy Reid is the outlier for sure because what he did in Philadelphia, even though he never won the Super Bowl in Philadelphia, he took the Eagles to a Super Bowl. So he for sure would be at the top of my list. But there are other guys that have had success at more than one place.
Actually, that's kind of. You can even think of massive, big time coaches who went somewhere else and never
Tony
did
Dungy.
anything, right?
Right.
Bill
But
Bill
recently-
Parcells,
But recently, like
Jimmy
most,
Johnson.
if you look at the top coaches in the league, right? Some of, like all these young guys that people love, like Sean McVay's a first-time coach. Brian Dable, everybody's excited about him. He's a first-time coach. What's his name? The Bills coach was a first-time head
McDermott.
coach. It's just about finding the right guy. I mean, I know they're off to a good start, but is anybody excited about Mike Holmgren? Are Cowboys fans excited about Mike Holmgren being their
Mike
coach? I don't
McCarthy.
think so.
Mike McCarthy. Mike
sorry.
Holmgren
Yeah.
retired for a
Mike
while.
Holmgren, jeez.
No, same guy
But
to me too.
But
Yeah.
to your point, I
Yeah.
do think there's merit in guys learning from their mistakes
Sure.
the first time around, and guys that get fired because maybe they got a job too
Well,
soon or it wasn't the right fit.
Or unfairly. Look at Jim
or
Caldwell.
if-
How's that guy not a head coach?
If you're going to go there to this undrafted, unproven well, guys, you're going to be sick when I read you the names. I mean, we all know them, but we've forgotten some of these. Bud Carson obviously he was already on the staff. Jim Schaffner, Bill Belichick, ran the best coach of all time out.
Yep.
This organization, Art Modell, got rid of Paul Brown and Bill Belichick.
Ownership.
Ownership.
Didn't
ownership.
technically the Ravens fire
Then we
Bill
got-
Parcells?
Technically, but
Bill
it's the
Belichick?
same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was clear that
It was the same
Yeah,
group.
it was
Yeah.
the same thing.
But why?
So-
But why? By the way, that actually worked though. They won the Super Bowl like 2 years later.
That's true.
yeah, Chris Palmer,
They'd still rather have Belichick.
and they probably won more than one.
Yeah.
Chris Palmer, Butch Davis, Terry Rubisky, Romeo Crennel, Eric Mangini, Pat Shermer, Rob Chudzinski, Mike Pettin, Hugh Jackson, Greg Williams, Freddie Kitchen, Kevin Stefanski.
Yeah. Are they
Wow.
all terrible? Or
Yeah.
would some
Yes.
of them
You know, they're
or would
all
some
terrible.
of them have had success with
I
other
think
with
I
better
think-
talent?
I think Mike Pettin could have been a really good head coach.
But he hasn't been yet.
I think he's scarred. I think he's had
I
opportunities.
think he is too.
I think he's got PTSD
He
from
does have
being.
PTSD.
I think he's like, you know what?
That's
I'm good where I'm at.
You know what? It's like an organization can ruin a young quarterback by drafting him and throwing him in there way too early. We've seen this organization do that countless times. Same thing can happen to a
They
head coach,
forced
and
him
they
to
get
play-
scarred from the outside too. They're like
They
damaged goods
forced
don't
him to
want
play Johnny Manziel.
Yes.
He was 7-5.
I know.
With Brian Hoyer.
I know.
Brian Hoyer is not a good quarterback. He's worse than Jacoby Brissett.
But here's the thing: we knew that was coming.
That he was going to be forced to start?
When Johnny Manziel walked on that stage and did this,
Yeah.
he was already going to play.
Yeah.
And by the way, all of those coaches that I've read, all
Yeah.
of those coaches in that time,
Right.
the Steelers have had 3.
longer than that because Steelers have had
Well,
three
if you go back to
since
Chuck Noll,
69.
all the way back to 69.
Yeah.
So you could go back to Forrest Gregg, even before Marty Schottenheimer.
Yeah.
You could go back to the late 60s.
Right.
So it's to the point that I made earlier this week that it is ownership. It really is ownership. Creating a culture that that culture exists in New England, that culture exists in Pittsburgh, that culture exists in Kansas City,
And
that
now it
culture
does in
exists
Baltimore.
in Green Bay, that culture exists in Baltimore. Then you have organizations like Cleveland and Detroit and Jacksonville, where the ownership can't get those spots right. That's why on this, and I bring all of this
Right.
up to just say this. I do think Kevin Stefanski, now whether they just ran into one, because if you swing blindly enough, you're going to hit. And I think that that's probably more than likely what this was, but I think they have the right coach. I just wish they would put a management team around him, and I'm not suggesting Andrew Berry isn't part of that, but when you have a relative of the owner in a extremely high and powerful position in the group, you have to ask yourself, is that really the best available person that we can put in that position?
Right.
Because if you're not serving your fan base well.
One of the big reasons Josh McDaniels is not the head coach of the Browns is because he walked into his interview and said, blow everybody out of the building. You have to cleanse
And he
the
was
building.
right.
Of course he was right.
Well, we don't know if he's any good as a head coach.
I mean,
But that
was awful in
no,
Denver.
but that point.
But that point is a good point.
He walked in there and told them, you need to blow the building out,
Yeah.
sanitize the building, and start completely over.
but here-
and
here-
they said no.
Here's my thing about coaching, though. Of
course they did.
A lot of the coaches don't get out of their own way. Yeah, you can say that, the owner has some different things to do. But these coaches in the first 2 to 3 years don't ever learn from what the other coaches did. The first thing you do is if you come in somewhere, you need to understand, if you ain't got a quarterback, you're going to get fired, bro. I don't care about how you put your regime in process, because what's going to happen is you're going to lose games if you cannot.
Really? That's what I've been screaming for weeks.
There you go. That's why when they went and got Deshaun Watson, I was like, well, look, you say what you want about it. They said, come hell or high water, we got to get a quarterback because he's going to get fired.
And now
If you
people
don't.
still want to fire him, and he's here. He's just not available yet. And they're still trying to fire him.
Yeah, that's part of the game. The part of the game is that 3 to 5 year program we kept telling people that no longer exists.
Well, I think
That don't exist
the
no
whole
more.
Deshaun Watson thing bought time for Kevin Stefanski.
Yes, it
because
did.
The one thing you can't do
yes, it did.
is let go of the coach that took you to the playoffs before he ever gets to kick the tires on the quarterback.
That's why Stefanski, to me, it's never even been a real question whether he gets fired.
Right.
It's
But
not even on the
they
table.
should. I think it would be wise for them to bring in a veteran defensive coordinator,
I got a name for you.
Yeah.
Mike Zimmer.
That's the name.
You think
Yeah, I'll
so?
take
What was their relationship? Did they have a good relationship in Minnesota?
I would imagine they did. I don't know how deep it is,
Right.
but
and his defenses weren't
Well,
great
wouldn't
the
that be
last
odd,
couple
though,
of years.
because now Stefanski would be his boss?
yeah, I don't think I don't know Mike at all, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But some guys
But
that
he's
would
always
guys have
been a great
egos and they just can't
He's
check
always
them.
been a
Right.
great DC wherever he's been.
Yeah, no,
two
wonderful.
names: Mike Zimmer and Brian Flores are the two guys that I
Where
would
is
look
Zimmer
at.
right now?
He
Hall-
just
golfing.
yeah, because
Is
he
he
got
really?
fired at the end of last year by
No, I
Minnesota.
know, but I didn't know if anybody, because a lot of guys work as consultants.
Right, I don't
He's
know.
probably taking a paycheck
Back-
still from
back
Minnesota.
that
So he
brick-
can't.
And he may not want to do. He may think that's beneath him now. I have no idea.
They got
But that
us-
was actually a name that was floated to me.
They got
from,
some
from
nice
outside
parts.
outside the organization.
They got some nice pieces, Jason.
About well, they do. But that was the
I
name
would-
that was
I would
floated
love
to
to
me.
see that.
Was hey, if anything happens.
And by the
with Joe,
way, he
keep
could
an
be
eye on Mike
available
Zimmer.
tomorrow.
He could.
But it would be really wonky to bring a guy in mid-season.
But
No,
it
I
might be
said
good.
earlier, it's kind of like waving the white flag on the season.
Yeah.
But in a way, if we're thinking about next year anyway, because of Deshaun,
Unconventional.
he gets half a year to evaluate them in person.
Sometimes you got
A
to be
little bit of runway could be good.
Yeah.
You got to be unconventional sometimes, right? Bill Belichick they love Bill Belichick because he does things other people don't do, right?
Like
Hire
guys
his
on
own son to be
Christmas.
offensive coordinator.
All that. They just do
A
it.
defensive
And it just
coordinator.
it rolls, right?
he earned
Because it's
that
Bill
role.
being Bill.
We've been screaming for weeks. They need some nasty on the defense, and they need. Where's that leader? I'll tell you what, Mike Zimmer's the red ass
is nasty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I like
that's-
that.
And that's why if it's not going to be one of the players, it damn well better be
Yeah.
the defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And somebody's got to be angry. Tom Brady took a lot of flack. I don't know if you watch what Jason Kelsey does a podcast every week with his brother Travis. It's pretty good, actually.
Mm-hmm.
He made some comments about Tom Brady saying, get the F out of my face with that. You know, like that's what he would say. Now, he wouldn't say that to Tom Brady because Tom Brady is the guy that can do that. But Brady took a lot of heat around the league for getting in the face of his offensive linemen and ripping them a new one during their loss to Pittsburgh. And I don't know where you guys are on that, but I'm all for that.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
There's the legendary clip of Peyton Manning screaming at Jeff Saturday. Telling him, snap the ball, Jeff. Shut up and snap the ball. That's all you do. That's all you do. And Rodgers was just screaming Sunday, I think it was, the week before, about snap the effing ball.
And those are the three guys that have leash to do that.
Yeah.
Even Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce was weighing in on what Jason said, because Jason said, there's no way my quarterback's talking to me like that. Unless my quarterback's Tom Brady. But other than that, there's no way.
Yeah.
And Travis was funny. Travis said, yeah, I'm not going to take that from my quarterback either. And his quarterback's Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
So if there's a guy that's on the cusp of having that leeway, it would be Patrick.
And it's easy for these guys to say this behind a microphone.
Yeah, exactly.
If Mahomes chews him out on the field, what's Kelce going to do?
Not much. Listen.
They go back and forth.
I mean, Travis could kick
Okay, is he really going to do that?
No.
But I love that. I love holding guys accountable.
Yes.
And look, I don't know that any of them would have the guts to get up to Brady's face if he threw an ill-advised pass.
Yeah.
But you better be able to take it if you're going to dish it out.
Was he saying that partly because Brady hasn't been that good this year? Like that maybe
No.
he should be putting it on himself more?
No, it was the discussion was
Just in
what
general.
what do we make of Brady laying into his offensive lineman? And if you haven't seen the clip, I'm sure you can find it online.
Yeah.
He came at him pretty hard, but I was fine with that. And what I said when I was watching it was not that our quarterback would do that here because, Jacoby Brissett doesn't have that
He
cachet.
stands up and apologizes after every game.
But what I want, I would love to see Myles Garrett do that once to the defense after a blown assignment. I would love to see him standing up, 10 guys sitting down, and him slamming his finger in the air and pointing at guys.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen that. I haven't seen anything close to that.
Either you got it or you don't. It's not something that's just in you or it's not. Like, you don't, just because you got the C on your chest don't mean you that type of vocal leader. There's a lot of people that Tom Brady would never think about that, yelling like that. They'd be
Don't
like,
you need someone to be that guy?
I need them. I need the
Even
coaches.
if it's not Myles.
I need the coach. I need 2-3 players to do that. It's all good for you to be on the sideline because that means that you're passionate, that you don't, this ain't acceptable. For me, I look at the Browns and really, it looks like a cupcake walk.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Right. Everything's soft.
Ain't nothing mean or contentious. I don't see it.
And by the way, all of you out there, if you want me to yell at you, make sure you subscribe to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Subscribe. Hit
No,
the
you're
bell.
going to yell at them if they don't subscribe.
That's true.
What's our
I'm
number?
yelling at you even more.
16,000?
16-4 now. 16-4.
We were at like 16-2 yesterday.
Click that subscribe button. Click on that bell. Let's go.
We can get someone like LeBron out there who would blow the defensive assignment and then look around and throw his
Oh,
arms and yell at everybody else.
He was cold for that. That's your man, dog. That's your
Guys
dude.
would blow by him and he'd go,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
That's great.
John Johnson was like, I'm gonna pick that one. I like that move. That's
he
crazy.
ain't
I
LeBron.
love that move.
Blow the assignment and then
Yeah.
throw your hands up and look around. Where were you?
Classic,
only
classic,
LeBron
classic.
can pull that off. And Tom Brady.
Boy.
We were going to talk about the Ravens offense and how it matches up with the Browns
We'll save that for
defense.
tomorrow.
Yeah, because that's
counts.
good. But no, I thought this was a good
It was good.
discussion.
Yeah, it was good.
I did because
Much needed.
Whether it's John Dorsey or whether it's Andrew Berry, the fact of the matter is they've got to get more out of everybody on this roster.
The
than they're
good
getting.
news is, and it's not good enough, is that both John Dorsey and Andrew Berry overall have done a better job than the previous 3 or 4 GMs who were complete Fs.
Yeah.
They
had-
so it's getting better. Now, Berry's
Now,
got to do a better
in
job.
Sashi's defense, I think he was carrying the flag for the organization during a time where they were giving
Right.
up. And that's
Yes.
tough to do.
And he did, and he drafted Myles Garrett. I know it seems like a no-brainer, but
that one's easy.
And I do, we were just talking earlier about coaches learn from their mistakes. I think it's the same thing with GM. They get better at drafting
Absolutely.
the more that they do it. They're going to have misses the first time they're in charge, even the second time they're in
Yeah.
charge. By year 3, by year 4, some of these guys are in the position for 10 or 12 years. It's because they figured it out. And they've learned from their mistakes.
The Browns
so you would
have
hope
to-
that Andrew could be that guy.
the Browns have gotten, at minimum, enough from Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski.
To be competitive.
And they should not be thinking about firing either of them.
Right.
Joe Woods, Mike Prefer, that's a different story.
I agree with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, yes,
There's
yes.
got to be accountability.
Yes.
Yeah.
And right now, the organization is kind of running on this autopilot deal where there's no accountability.
It feels that way, yeah.
Okay, so we have. Can we get someone that can catch a punt? even if you can't get return around, can we get
Bro,
someone that I don't
I mean,
have
it's
to
bad.
hold my breath
Bro,
every
every
single
time.
time? I'm holding my
I
breath
know.
saying that he's going to fumble this.
And in their defense, they
They
did
said,
sign
yeah.
Jakeem Grant. They did try. They
But
did try to address.
you gotta
it. He
have a
gets hurt and
backup
can't-
option.
I know.
Can't bring a guy
but
off
they
the
did.
streets.
You know, we scream again, defensive tackle. Why
Yeah.
won't they address it? They did. These guys suck.
They've gotten it wrong.
They tried to address
Yeah.
the punt return team. He gets hurt.
Yeah, it is
So-
funny. They actually have drafted 4 defensive linemen in the first 4 rounds the last 3 years. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And none of them have
And
hit.
they better
None of
draft
them.
more
Yeah.
because they,
they
don't have
had
the
one
answers
here,
yet.
and that kind of goes on the GM too. Ogunjobi, when he was here, I know it's easy to say now, but I loved him when he was here.
I did too.
I
I
loved
thought he
him
was a
when
great
he was
pick.
here.
I thought he was a
And
great pick.
Olivier
And he played well
Vernon
for the
and
Bengals
Sheldon
last year.
Richardson, like I don't know why I don't want to. It feels like
Because
they devalued it because they haven't hit. But they had guys that were good that were here that they
But
let walk.
But they were looking to save money, right? You got to save money at some spots. They were confident in their draft picks, and they were wrong.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that they don't care about the position. I think they've just misevaluated the position.
Yeah, that's